All right, guys. I want to just read something here real quick. Toska Rezhavi Semnatsat Rasvet Pesh Deviat Dobro Kashetsveni Vosvrash Chenei Domoy Odin Tovarne Vagan.
That's a good one.
Okay.
That's a good one.
As long as we don't got any super soldiers here, I'm good to go. We can go ahead and get started on discussing episode 4 of The Falcon the Winter. What?
If your pronunciation had been better, then something might have gone down.
I was a little concerned you were having a stroke, personally.
My Russian is niet. Welcome everyone to the MCU Pod, a companion podcast to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I'm your host, Grant Davis, and Mike went to the bathroom and El Chapo'd himself out of a hole under the tub, so he's not here this week. But that's okay, because this week I won't have to do it alone. I'm joined by not one, but 2 professional screenwriters. Once again, we're joined by Gentleman Warrior Scoundrel of the Modern Rogue YouTube series and horror writer / screenwriter, Jason Murphy.
That's me. Hi. How's it going?
Jason, thank you for joining us. How is it going?
Thank you for having me. Yeah, just enjoying that golden age of television. You know, it's I literally just got through watching the episode just a few minutes ago.
Me too.
Yeah, and
we really prepare for this show, folks.
I know. Well, yeah, it's well, I actually did Randy and Bo and I recorded a comic book podcast recently. That
Loose Cannon Comics.
That's right. We did one for the first time in 8 years, and so that I got to bone up on my Captain American Winter Soldier by hanging out with those 2 walking encyclopedias of comic book lore. And like, man, anytime I think I know a lot about comics, like, hang out with Bo and Randy. And it's just those 2. They know their stuff.
Is it too late? Yeah. Is it too late to swap them in from you and me? I mean, I feel like Grant would be better served with them on the mic.
Yeah, we're gonna bring out the ringers.
Hold up, I'm pretty sure I can just drop you both. How's it going with Modern Rogue?
Modern Rogue is good. That's an old one. Yeah, that's like 5 or 6 years ago.
You can tell by the color of your beard.
You can, yeah. It has spread quite a bit more. That's our old body armor episode, I think. And I don't know. There's a lot going on. There's a lot to unpack here. There's a hatchet, body armor, and nunchucks that we made out of magazines. And
yeah, you had nunchucks. What kind of loser has not? What's on your?
Oh, yes. These are my thinking chucks, Grant. But yeah, it's good. It's been hard shooting the last year, because we're all trying to obey appropriate COVID protocols and everything. And so I've been going out to Modern Rogue headquarters once every 2 months or so, and I'll stay out there for 2 or 3 weeks and just shoot 15 episodes or something like that, and then come back and go into quarantine for a little bit, take a test to make sure that I'm not bringing anything home to my wife. And we've got some exciting stuff, and it'll be good after a year that we can finally have experts back on the show, before too long. So that is, I love having the guest experts because that means I don't have to know what I'm doing. I can just fail and make stupid jokes the whole time. I don't have to teach Brian how to do anything. So
that's why I have you both on here. And you also have a new book that came out.
in Killer Candy. Thank you. That came out in October, I think. I released that in October. And that's the first in the Occultech series. And man, I keep having to push. Like I keep missing deadlines of like, because I've got the sequel written. It's almost done being edited. And I've got a prequel novella that is almost done being edited. I'm gonna, I think, release both of those. We're going to publish both of those in ebook and at least in ebook. The novella is probably just going to be the ebook, and then the sequel to Killer Candy will be out soon. It's called Necromancers on Drugs, and you can learn more about all of my stuff. Sign up for my newsletter by going to jasonsmurphy.com. So I'll have some stuff dropping pretty soon.
Nice. We are also happy to be joined by our buddy, friend of the pod, and screenwriter on Disney Plus's Gabby Duran and the Unsittables, Mr. Dimitry Pompée.
Thank you, Graham. Grant, it's Disney Channels, but it is on Disney Plus. Either way, look, you'll find it.
I don't know what the technical details here are.
It's fine. What I really like about me and Jason being here is like we are not unlike the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and that I'm that cool black guy who's kind of like actually broke, and Jason is the lunatic who plays with weapons. So really, we've got the full representation of the show right here.
Yeah, I brought my PTSD and everything.
If I can claim to be Zemo, I'll just be in the background drinking the entire time.
Oh, can we get a little improvisational dance from you?
Yeah,
a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of how about this?
What is love? Baby, don't hurt me no more. Baby, don't hurt me. Don't hurt me no more.
Oh, so good.
I'm really starting to love Baron Zemo. He's
don't get ahead. Don't use all your good lines yet, man.
Okay. Sorry. He's so fantastic.
He is delightful, and the fact that they filmed that dance sequence last week, or they released the episode with that dance sequence last week, they knew that everyone online would be clamoring so much for more of that they had already shot it. And then they released an hour-long thing of him dancing. Did you guys see that?
Did they
There's
really?
an hour-long looping video of it. Yeah. Straight up
it's on the official Marvel social media.
Oh, good. That's why there's extra.
I just really hope.
I
just really hope they start bringing in some of the weird Zemo stuff, like the crazy super adhesive that sticks the mask to his face. Like, come on, let's get Silver Age with it. Let's do it.
I don't know. Matching bodysuit that is the same material as the mask with the fur shoulders. That's what I want.
Yes.
Well, folks, tonight we're going to be discussing episode 4. You can check us out live over on youtube.com/MCU Pod. And while you're there, please go ahead and hurl a vibranium spear right through that subscribe button for us. Just obliterate it. We would love to have you guys checking us out weekly when we go live here at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time, doing our reviews of this, and then, What If and Loki and all the other upcoming shows. A few notes before we get into the proper episode. You guys can subscribe, like I said. If you go to mcupod.com, that's a good place to go ahead and find us. You can rate and review us over on Apple. You guys know all these things about like how you can support a show that you're watching. If you guys want to give us money, you can do that at patreon.com/MCU Pod. You go there, make your per episode pledge, and you can join us. It's not per episode, it's per month. You can join us as a $2 Defender. Here we go, right here. Or a $5 Revengers, or a $10 Avengers. And we have bonus exclusive episodes and all that. I'm sure you guys are excited to have to see my pitch.
You got to pull in the dollars. I understand.
make that money, pay for this. Help me pay for this. That'd be awesome. Yeah. And other than that, if you guys are currently watching us over on YouTube, you can go ahead and make your comments on what you thought throughout the episode. Join in on the conversation with us. We like that. We can pop up your thoughts here on the screen as we go along. It's a lot of fun. And we're about to move into a segment that we like to call Snap Judgments. The whole world is watching this 4th episode. It's written by Derek. Derek, I think his just name is Derek. I don't have it written here. The same guy from last week. Who cares about writers, right, guys? And Carrie Skoglin is the director. The synopsis for this was John Walker loses patience with Sam and Bucky as they learn more about Carly Morgenthau. And yeah, for Snap Judgments, I'm going to let you go first, Dimitri. What did you think, A, of this episode, and B, of the series thus far?
I mean, this episode is the best one yet, and I've liked all of them a whole lot so far. Very thrilled, I cannot wait to see what happens next. Thus far, within the series, I'm getting everything I possibly wanted. I'll admit it, I'm a Captain America, Bucky, and Falcon stan. So it would be hard for this to disappoint me. Not impossible, but hard. But I'm getting everything I want, and I'm really excited to talk about it.
All right, Jason, Mr. Murphy, what do you think?
I really like it. How many episodes of this are we getting? 6? Is that right?
6.
And that was 4. Okay, well that makes about sense, right? Because here in this episode we see kind of a bunch of tipping points where you had a lot of characters having to make some decisions. So far, I think this episode the series keeps getting better and better. There have been some shaky stuff. The first episode was a little flat for me in places, but I thought it worked pretty well. The only gripe I have is that I'm still trying to get over the idiocy of getting Zemo out of jail. That was the one thing where I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna have to get past that because that's ridiculous.
Do you mean the fact that they got him out, or the method by which they got him out?
I mean that they thought that was a good idea to get him out at all.
Look, man, you have limited I think, of course, number one, you're flat for me in places, so roasted. Number
Damn.
number 2, their backs were against the wall, man. There were no choices. They had no options out of time.
But you get the super villain out of there. But that said, we can do spoilers, right? We're good about that. This is okay. Making sure. Anytime the Dora Milaje shows up, all is forgiven. Because when they showed up in that apartment to get Zemo toward the end, I just wanted, John Walker was like, "This isn't working like I wanted to." I just wanted like Bucky to just go, "Dude, you need to ease up right now."
Don't do it.
Seriously,
don't do it.
Like, and then sure enough. The Dora Milaje are just like, "Oh no, you're not going to put your hand on me, Walker." He pats her on the shoulder, and so it's just like, "All right, commence ass kicking." It just takes him apart.
I love how Bucky was just like, "No, go ahead, do your thing, John Walker. Let's just see how this goes."
Yeah, right.
I'm very excited to talk with John Walker tonight, and I understand I shouldn't feel for him, especially like given the comic background of him. He's everything politically that I am not. But man, they've done a really good job making me go, I understand where you're coming from. I don't agree with what you're doing, but I get you as a person.
And not just John Walker. I understand everyone's motivations. Bad guys like Zemo, I get it. He's not right, but I get it, right? Mm-hmm. And like the Flag Smashers, the Flag Smashers, John Walker, he's trying his best. It's like everyone involved here, the villains all have great motivations, and so none of them are cartoon characters, and it's like that makes for a really great villain. And I think that you've got all of these people at cross purposes, and they have set up this lattice work really expertly, and just as it's really tightly written. By the fourth episode, everything starts to collide. Here's where we have all this collision, and they set it up really well. The motivations are great, and I'm really impressed how difficult it is to pick a side.
Yeah.
Speaking of collision, rest in peace, Battlestar. Am I right?
Oh, wow.
We got some snap judgments from the audience. Will Morris says, Battlestar should have stayed tied up on that floor. He'd be a lot less dead.
Got him.
Rich Murphy says, more like D Captain America. Am I right?
Oh, that was brutal. I did not see that coming.
Ooh.
Nicole Jackson says, Carly is out of control. Zemo might be right. Kern says, that was really dark for a Disney production. Utterly brutal ending.
Yeah.
I hope blood cleans easily off of vibranium. I'm sure.
I keep telling when we write for Disney, I keep saying, can we go a little darker? Let me end an episode with a bloody alien or Gabby holding a kid's hand. You know what? They never let us get this dark, so I'm very jealous of the Marvel side.
Put Gabby on the Tree of Woe from Conan the Barbarian. Just do that, with the tree pecking at her. Come on, Dimitri.
I feel like it would be my last day on the job if I ever pitched that.
You can tell him it was my idea. I don't want you taking credit, because when this one wins the Emmy.
So this episode starts with a flashback to the White Wolf. We got him being read the brainwashing lines that transform him into the Winter Soldier, and he's able to withstand it. It's like a good emotional moment, and it really goes to show you that the people of Wakanda and the Dora Milaje definitely saved this dude's ass, only for him to go ahead and break out the dude who killed their king. That's a pretty brutal move there.
It was again. I know that the circumstances, he felt his hands were tied. I mean, he had to talk himself into it. He had to talk Sam into it. I'm glad that he knew that the consequences were having the Dora show up for him. I'm glad that he knew that was coming. He was not surprised at all. And he understood, knowing full well that he would incur the wrath of Dora, that he had no choice but to get Zemo out. Again, that's the kind of thing that justifies the move for me. So I'm fine with it. Jason obviously has issues, but
I do.
That's okay. We can still be friends.
I do have issues. I really just wish, some of the other Avengers, I just wish Sam's phone was blowing up like the last two episodes, just like, and it's like Hawkeye, Thor, everybody else alive. And they're like, hey, maybe I heard this wrong, but it sounded like you guys broke Zemo out of jail. That you didn't want to talk about that a little bit, maybe? Do you remember Sokovia? Remember, because that was kind of him. And you just pissed off Wakanda. You didn't piss off Oklahoma. You didn't piss off Latvia. Okay, you were into Latvia. You pissed off Wakanda.
To be fair, Sokovia was Ultron, and maybe more so Tony.
That's true. That's true.
But the whole breaking apart the band, that was a beautiful Zemo moment. And I don't know. I feel
arguably the most effective MCU villain ever. Arguably.
Right. And I feel a little bit like I'm rooting for the guy a lot here. And that's by intent. I know that the writers are trying to make me root for him because he's adorable and he's delightful, guys. Can we have a little love session real quick here for Zemo in the background? He's constantly just eating Turkish delights and having little sips, and he's the new Baby Yoda.
he is the Bond. He's the Bond villain the MCU needs.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like he's the most nuanced villain, but maybe that's more the fact that they've had even more time to kind of play with and develop the character through the TV show as well here.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you're right, Jason, about like everyone being fleshed out and they all have nuance. You understand their motivations here. And for him, he made a really powerful line. Well, let me see. I wrote it down. The desire to become superhuman cannot be separated from supremacist ideals.
And that, sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Like, go ahead, take it away.
That's interesting. That I haven't read it yet, so I really shouldn't speak to it. But I want to say like Grant Morrison touches on ideas like that in Super Gods, his book that came out a couple of years ago. I've got it on the shelf over here somewhere. But Alan Moore also says stuff like that in his criticism of modern comic books. He says these are all just the fantasies, like Nietzschean Superman fantasies. And so, I mean, I think you can see some credence to that, and you would understand his argument, and that's
the whole like point of like Watchmen too. It's like when someone, any entity, individual or organization that gains too much power without any sort of check or oversight is danger. And to like Sam's point about like, well, Steve Rogers and Bucky throws that, or Zemo throws that right back at me. He's like, yeah, Steve Rogers. Who else is going to be like that? Except Sam. Sam's the other guy who could do that.
Yeah, it's an interesting take. Because you've got like 3 different people here in this show who kind of have a claim to the shield.
There's a bunch of like, they keep dangling it for a bunch of people. Like they have, of course, Sam, who was rightfully given the shield by Steve. You have the new Cap, whatever his name is, John Walker, who was appointed by the government. And one could argue, that was the same approach they took for Steve. They just recruited a guy. But then you have Carly, who they have this really weird scene at this graveyard where that's an absurd place to hide the serum.
Hey, did anyone find it? No.
fair point. But yeah, the fact that they're like, that guy's like there to be like, hey, audience, I really think that Carly could also be heir to the Captain America cowl. I was like, get the fuck out of here.
that is true to exactly one person, and I'm pretty sure he's dead now.
I mean, there was that moment where you see where all the serum spills out, and Zemo picks it up. And he looks at it for a second. And did you guys think that he was considering taking it?
I did. Just for a second, I did.
Of course.
And this is a man of principle. Go ahead.
It's true to the character. I mean, again, that's an example of incredible writing. Yes, of course he thought about it, but the character is his whole deal. His whole thing is, I do not care for super soldiers. They are against my way of life. They're a danger to the world. By becoming one, he would have betrayed his entire character. It was very good instinct from the writers to let him do what he does and start smashing serums up.
That hesitation, though, that little beat he takes is perfect.
He's only human.
Yeah, and you juxtapose that with John Walker, who luckily was wearing an outfit with like 1 million pockets. He can just slip that in. But I mean, you understand the motivations there. And I don't know, I could almost make an argument that the person so reluctant and so opposed to what it means to have superhero powers without accountability, like Zemo, would have been more worthy of taking that super soldier serum than a person like John Walker, who is just kind of power tripping.
Yep. I don't know if he's just power tripping, though. That's not what I buy from him.
I know
that we were going to talk about this later on, but let's just talk about John Walker right now. John Walker, I don't think he's a bad guy. I do not think he's a bad person at all. I think that, as we know, the serum brings out what's best in you and brings out, if you're good, you become great. If you're not so good, you become a lot worse. John Walker, unlike Steve, has a primary motive. The thing that's keeping him going more than anything else is this sense within him that he is just completely inadequate. And we saw it here where they were talking about his time getting his medals of honor, and that was because he wasn't able to save his men. He wasn't able to save Battlestar. He wasn't able to beat a single Dora. He got pantsed by the Dora. The thing that motivates John Walker is his unending sense of inadequacy. And what motivates him to take this is because finally, he's comparing himself to Steve too. Like, I'm inadequate compared to Steve Rogers, but if I take this serum, maybe then finally, I will be worthy of carrying on his legacy and carrying the shield. I don't know if he's right. I sincerely doubt it. He demonstrated that he's not right at the end of the episode, but inadequacy is driving every decision he makes. And I don't think that makes him a bad guy. I think that makes him a very insecure guy. That makes him a foolish guy. But I'm not convinced he's a bad guy quite yet.
Agreed. Yeah.
And then you show me that picture.
Yeah. I think he's probably got survivor's guilt. He's got PTSD, maybe some imposter syndrome, definitely. So he's carrying a lot of weights, but he genuinely thinks he's doing the right thing. But here's another thing. If Falcon and Winter Soldier had not gotten involved, would he be a successful Captain America? No.
Well, I mean, he's completely riding on their coattails of like everything they're doing, and that's a continuing testament to Sam. And I like how they're playing off of what it means to be a hero, especially with Sam's approach versus the brute force approach that John Walker's kind of advocating of. Follow these guys, they have the better hand, but at the same time punch through and just grab Corley Morgenthau and stop that situation. It enriches Sam's background that he's a person who did in what was it, Winter Soldier. He was his previous job was talking to people who had PTSD, like talking them through their trauma and trying to help them with compassion. And that is the type of character, that's the type of integrity that is good for Captain America. That's what us, the audience, are clearly rooting for here. And now that we see John Walker have his mental break, it's all the more poignant that Sam's approach be the one that we kind of gravitate toward, and that hopefully he can kind of step up and even maybe save John Walker from a very unfortunate viral moment.
That was a brilliant moment that I did not remember about Sam's background, that he would work with soldiers who, back from war and had PTSD and stuff like that, and how that just factors seamlessly into this story. But their interaction here with, Sam wanting everyone to kind of take a breath, let him go in and talk to them and talk to Carly. Again, this show, and so superheroics and superhero stories are ultimately, in a lot of ways, just about law enforcement on some level, right? I mean, it's good guys versus bad guys or whatever. And so when you have there's a lot underneath the surface of this show. Like, there's a lot of stuff that's unspoken and a lot of things that have been dealt with implicitly and explicitly in the comic books. But where our culture is at right now, when you have someone that represents America, that's loaded. That could go a lot of different ways. And I thought the show, it's like, there's some elephants in the room that the show has had to address in terms with law enforcement and a black man being the representative of America. And in episode 2, I think it was, a black man dealing with the police department and what his encounter was like. And now you've got this moment that a couple of moments that they put in episode 4 where Sam is like, hey, let me just go in and talk to him first. I mean, that says a lot about the national discussion right now, where, people are getting gunned down and stuff like that. And so it's one of those things where a lot of superheroes shows and media and comics, games. I know I want to say the Spider-Man game on the PS4 got into trouble because got some flack because Spider-Man's relationship with the cops was completely sunny and he was helping them like they were good guys and always in the right. I'm not even making a statement about that, but I'm just saying, being that is such a topic right now, this show had to address stuff like that. It had to. If they ignored it, they would get called out. If they handled it wrong, they would get called out. And so they're being very delicate with it. In my opinion, again, as a white male, seems like they're handling it pretty well. They're trying to serve a lot of masters, but it's one of those things that they couldn't not. Oh, bad choice of words.
Amazing.
Wow.
Oh, you almost had it. You almost had it. Don't worry. I'll write you a permission slip. Don't worry. I got you, man. You were so close.
Damn
you
it.
almost.
Oh.
And there goes your entire eloquent, beautiful point.
I just got canceled. No, I mean,
Jason.
It's one of those where it's like, they were damned if they do and damned if they don't. And it seems to me like they're handling that delicately. And I'm glad that they even had the courage to approach it, in such a high level show.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. This is much like all comics, really. This is a deeply political show, and
yes.
Before I was writing children's television, I used to be a lobbyist, so that's exactly what I want in my comic books. Yeah, so this is right up my alley. Aside from even the domestic politics that Jason was speaking of, the very last image of the episode. I mean, let's talk about John Walker again as the representative of America. The world sees what America stands for when he's holding that bloody shield. What that reminds me of, and I don't know, maybe it's just me, this is the Abu Ghraib photos to me. This is the MCU equivalent of the Abu Ghraib photos, when some people who are in the United States military torturing detainees. Like, this is the world seeing America go too far, and it's going to have a lot of repercussions for the nation and John Walker himself. And we're gonna see, I believe, the image of the nation take a big hit in the MCU, and that's only going to embolden groups like the Flag Smashers to keep upping their ante and being a lot more dangerous than we've already seen them be. It's things are coming to a head, and it's not going to be pretty.
I agree with everything you guys are saying, and I to piggyback a little bit off of what Jason, you were talking about, the shift that the MCU has made with both this show and WandaVision before it, to taking a little bit more seriously the motivations of people that we just label as villain or bad guy, and making it something that's a little bit more complex than just take him down, arrest him, put him in jail or whatever. Having Zemo in this episode, when Zemo was a person who was a true victim of the Avengers, who lost his family to them and lost like a lot of what he had. I would say everything, but he's a baron who still seems pretty rich.
He's doing all right.
Doing all right there. But he was a true victim of the hubris of Tony Stark and his move to be the sole protector with his powers and his billions of dollars. And to bring him back into this show and show, let's do a little bit of an examination here of what it means to grapple with that and hold on to that pain and how you channel it. And it's not so simple of like, oh, you're a bad guy. Carly is coming from a very similar place of like, look, the world was working for a lot of us. Everyone else came back and they forgot about that and went back to having borders everywhere. I love how this show is examining that. It's a lot more gray than black and white in the nuance here between good and evil, and that mental health, mental awareness of like people that have gone through trauma, like Wanda or the people that went through the blip. Like there's a shared world trauma here that is not adequately being addressed. And the show is trying to show that and bring that up as part of the conversation, which is a very smart call, I think, of the MCU to use television to be able to examine that in a longer form storytelling.
Yeah, I think that's what the shows are really going to be good about. And they, in the movies, there were so many characters they had to satisfy. There's so many plot points, not just how they, there were so many things going on that it I don't know. It's fascinating to see how they're able to keep all of the plates spinning, and with this, it's like there's so many things going on in movies that they can't spend a lot of time with the angst of survivor's guilt and, people surviving all of this stuff. And yet, so they said, okay, these shows are going to be like connective tissue basically for the movies. And they're going to kind of set the stage, and we're going to be able to spend a lot of time with people that we probably couldn't justify putting opening weekend. We're going to tell this story in a big theater. Right. And yet you'd think that would mean that they were going to simplify things going to the smaller scale, and they're not. It's just as dense, but it's just like, hey, we're just going to flip this over and look at all of this stuff from this angle now. And what you said, Grant, man, I'd really like to see stuff about like during the blip, like more of what we saw at the beginning of Endgame, and like how people are struggling, like some other heroes and how they handled the blip. Like what happened for Daredevil during the blip, that kind of thing.
It could have just been this plot contrivance that
right
allows, but now they're like treating this as like this has real ramifications for the rest of the future of what the MCU is,
and it's got ramifications for the people, for like the real people, and for the world. And it's not just some comic book thing. It's like, oh no, how did they deal with this? Because like in the Infinity Gauntlet comic, whenever it was all undone, most of the people didn't remember it, I think. And it was just like, okay, that's over. And now we can forget about it. There are no long-term effects. And this, in these movies, the interesting thing is that, since they can't draw characters that don't age forever and ever, and keep everyone in stasis, things can change in the movies. And you can see people dealing with long-term traumas and actual deaths of characters. And so there are stakes here that, in the comic book, somebody goes away, they'll be back, or it'll get undone, it'll get fixed, whatever. But in the MCU, since, you've got actors whose contracts expired and people get old and they die and everything in real life, we're going to be able to see, I think, like some approaches to these stories with some real gravity, because we can't say that they won't be undone, but it's different. The stakes are much bigger, I think, in the MCU.
Yeah,
and a lot more real, honestly. I mean, the very idea of what we know as the nation state is radically changing before our very eyes today. We have tons of stateless people wandering the world. We have great nations like Russia that are just like, I just want Georgia today. We're just going to take it. Like, this is the stuff that is occurring in the blip. And I, for one, I agree with you. I would love to see maybe later on down the line or in a different series, what was it like when there were no borders? What was that like? Was it a better time? I bet it was in some ways. I bet it was worse in many others. And it's an ongoing discussion that we are having as a people as we discuss immigration, migration, refugees. Like, these are the things we need to be talking about. And I think that much like the best comics do, the MCU shows are speaking real truth to actual issues and perhaps even giving us warning signs of what we shouldn't do. Will we heed them? I hope. But all I know is I really like seeing it play out like this. I can imagine being in that writer's room trying to set all this stuff up without knocking over any of the dominoes early. It's credit to that writer's room. I don't know if I could survive in there.
It's Pepe Sylvia. It really is.
Lines of craziness.
Yeah.
I mean, I think one of my favorite parts of last episode was when Zemo's talking to Sam and and Bucky about, oh, yeah, you know what happened to Sokovia after it dropped down on the ground in the rubble? All the other countries just came in and divvied it up. Sokovia is gone. Doesn't exist anymore. And now there's a memorial there, and you guys probably didn't even go visit that either, which is a perfect condemnation of the superheroes and them failing to think of the accountability and the repercussions of their actions. You know, if you want to play hero, it's a lot more than just beating up the bad guy. It's the aftermath and dealing with that. And now, like, the other thing that we saw in this episode is that I think is super sad is that Sam doesn't seem to have any friends in the Avengers.
Right.
Where are they? Like, you made a joke about, like, you know, like his phone should be blowing up with everyone going like, dude, what are you doing? But it's not happening. No one is contacting him. And when his sister is in mortal peril and his nephews, what does he say? Go find a hotel, pay in cash. He doesn't have any other resources. And I'm like, what happened with the rest of them? Where are they? Where is any of his, like, sort of like safety blanket for what he did?
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah,
I mean, because
question.
we don't know if there are Avengers right now. And this has been the question that they've had to answer throughout the entire franchise. Like, oh, and this is happening in Iron Man's movie, you know, where's his friend Thor? Why doesn't he just call Thor? You know? And so you see a lot of that, but you would think like there would be at least a little bit, like, you know, I mean, I know, yeah, Wanda has no friends either.
And Wanda had no friends. Yeah.
Yeah. And you could go down the list and account for each of them, you know, but like, really? It's like, especially this whole thing with John Walker, that's all over the news. And then in the background with all these phones around, there's Sam and Bucky just kind of going, he just straight up decapitated a guy. And you'd think like at least like Hawkeye would call and go, so saw you on the news.
Right.
I don't want to make it sound like a cop-out, but it's that classic question when you're reading a Batman comic and he's dealing with Bane, like, why couldn't he just call Superman? Like, we had to give the characters a chance to struggle a little bit, you know? I understand the frustration. We do ask more of the MCU because it is so good at this, but I'm willing to let that one slide because, you know, the real world implications of getting these actors to do these things could be a little hard.
I don't chalk it up as a plot hole so much as there's something sad going on that he doesn't like. This guy doesn't seem to have that kind of friendship network from being in that organization or any other sort of backing. Like, I mean, like Pepper Potts. Hey, can you at least like put them up in a nicer hotel with some security?
Well, hey, think about who his friends were when they were on the run. He had Steve and he had Sharon, and Sharon's still backing him up. Steve's, you know, not around. I don't know who else he like felt close enough to, like possibly War Machine, but I don't know who else he could call on.
That Psycho Reviewer says Hawkeye saying, bet you wish you had my arrows now, Flyboy.
That's very good. That's very good.
Speaking of Sharon, we discussed this a bit last week, but let me ask you guys what you think about her, and is she power broker?
That's a good question.
Wow.
Question.
All right. She's totally got to be power broker, right?
Oh, wow. I hadn't considered that. That's crazy. Because in the comics...
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say...
he's definitely a dude.
Yeah, well, in the comics, Sharon is like... I mean, she's a badass in this, but like in the comics, they refer to her, as Bo was telling me in her first reveal, in her first appearance in the comics, as like the most effective and deadliest secret agent in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So
she certainly has a lot of reason to be the power broker, given that the United States government has cast her to the wayside, despite all the things she did to help Captain America save the world. So yes. The motivation is certainly there.
last week's episode was called Power Broker, and we seemingly don't see Power Broker, and yet she's introduced in that episode. This week we see, and one could be like, well, what would be her motivation then for bringing them to her cook who's making super soldier serum? Maybe she's got a bigger end game as well that we don't know yet, and that'll be revealed. But we also see that Sam reaches out to her and is like, hey, just by a long shot, do you happen to have access to satellites? And yes, what underground art dealer wouldn't have access to satellites, guys? Power Broker probably would.
I've got access to like 2. I mean,
yeah, what?
You know, yeah.
Wasn't like being broke, Murphy.
I know. Poor people problems, man.
Modern Rogue. Check out Modern Rogue, where apparently they have access to satellites.
Yeah, come on. Go to patreon.com/Modern Rogue and hook us up so we can get a 3rd satellite. We've only got 2. So
wow. I want to pay web hosting costs. You want more satellites.
Help us. We're poor.
But in addition to Sharon having access to satellites, you see, like, when she's walking through all those like security blockades, she's walking through the crime alley with a degree of authority, just cruising through there. Like, she's talking onto the phone to those guys, but she doesn't seem concerned with anything shady that's going on around her because she's totally power broke.
You know, I got to side with Mr. Commentator Will Morris here. It feels this franchise, this entire franchise, has always been good about surprises. It's been good about reveals. It's been great about, you know, setting things up that you think are going to go one way and they go somewhere completely different. Sharon being the power broker feels way too easy to me. I agree 100%. Will, I think there's a chance. Maybe my personal theory is the power broker might be many people. Might not be one person. Maybe that could be Sharon. Maybe she's in the group of the power broker. I don't think she's
anonymous. It's like a collective.
It could be a collective. That's my thought.
Like Flag Smasher.
Like, you know, as George Lucas said about the prequels, they rhyme.
You know what? I could make also the argument that Zemo could potentially be power broker, and this is somehow him just kind of like, he could have been operating behind the scenes. He was super wealthy and had access to, I guess, break out of prison whenever he wanted. I don't know what's going on. He has all these cars, and maybe he was doing this on the side, and like now he's just kind of along for the ride with these guys because it's kind of fun, and he's just fucking with them.
I hope they break into the power broker's lair in the final episode, and then he's like at his chair, and then he turns around and it's Banner, and he's like, "Oh, hey guys, you look mad. Are you mad? Why are you guys mad? Did I miss something? Are you supposed to be here today?" Yeah, like, I was just working on the whole serum thing. I think I figured it. Oh, that's bad. Okay. I see where you're coming from with the
Oh shit. Yeah, so I think that there's a couple other points I wanted to bring up. I like that Zemo is a man who has a code. He has a certain degree of honor, and he very much believes in that. Like him picking up the vial and then crushing all of them, like that's not his draw. He's very focused. Like anyone who's trying to elevate some people above other people is creating a power differential, and that's a form of supremacy that he's just violently against. There's an argument for it, there's an argument against it, but he's very strict to it. And I thought that in addition to like his code, there was something kind of refreshing about Bucky's relationship with him, in that like Bucky seems to look at him and like straight up tells him like, "Oh yeah, the Dora Milaje are after you. And we could hand you in or not." But like, that's one of those writing things where Bucky could know that they're out to get Zemo and they're hot on the heels, and he keeps that a secret. But he's not concerned with keeping secrets from Zemo, I guess. And I think that is a sign of respect between all of them, that like I value your information. I'm not going to keep stuff from you. I will make you aware, hey, they're probably going to arrest you or take you back to Wakanda right after this. But in the meantime, we're working together. I'm going to try and keep them away from you.
I'm excited what they're doing with Zemo because they're setting the stage for Thunderbolts. And I mean, they could be, right?
Yes,
I don't know that that's happening, but are you familiar with the Thunderbolts, Grant?
That's Suicide Squad, right? For
basically Suicide Squad for Marvel, yes. But it was this group of heroes that showed up in the 90s, and they were, it was Kurt Busiek, if I'm not mistaken, who wrote it, and they were, there's a group of new heroes. Nobody knew who they were, and the comic was doing well, and then I want to say a couple of issues in, I don't remember when the reveal was. You're like, okay, new comic, new heroes. Oh, what's the identity of their? It's Baron Zemo. What? And it turns out it's Baron Zemo. And then all of these new heroes that you're into are Avengers villains. They're bad guys. And it was one of the greatest reveals in comic book history because nobody really knew. Everyone just thought, okay, it's these second stringers that Marvel's trying to introduce. It's like, oh no, they're bad guys trying to be bad guys, but then they start to realize helping people's kind of cool. And so there's some growth in there, but I really want to see them take Zemo in that direction. I think that would be really, really neat to see how they approach that.
What do you guys think overall about the Flag Smashers? It seemed like they were going to be a silly means to an end of a larger villain, right? The reveal of the power broker, and that was going to be the real villain. But they did get their story got extrapolated and expanded upon in a way that I was like, oh, okay. They are doing a little bit more commentary on the blip and the ramifications of that and borders and stuff. I don't know. Do you find you're siding with them or no?
Look, it could very easily be argued. And again, in our modern era, the nation state is failing you, especially here in these beautiful United States. I mean, we are going through a pandemic where it took entirely too long for the government response to be anything close to adequate. The Flag Smashers feel that's the way the world treats them. Now that everyone's back, the nation state has failed them. Look at their refugee school. It's a total dumping ground. They can't even get teachers reliably. They can't get supplies. They can get nothing. No one cares for these people. And
except Zemo.
Except for Zemo. Exactly. Except for Zemo. He's the first person who's come around in 6 months to give a damn. And I know the GRC is a thing, but if it's anything like, the governments that we face here today, they're focused on helping the richer nations while leaving the poor nations behind. And after a while, when you've been neglected by the nation state system over and over and over again, it's going to turn you sour. And there's a lot to judge. Their movement, I'm not going to say their violence is justified, but their movement is certainly has elements that are justified for sure.
That psycho reviewer says, insane thought. What if Norman Osborn is the power broker?
Ooh. If it's Willem Dafoe or I don't want it.
Yeah, getting a little ahead of yourself there. That is insane, and I'm glad you acknowledge that it's insane. But I like it. I'm into it. Not going to happen, but that's pretty cool.
That would feel so out of left field to me. I'd be like, there was nothing to indicate that at all. But you guys are writers. That'd probably be something you guys would throw at us.
If we had the character, yes. I would advocate for Dr. Doom myself personally, but that's just because I'm a Doom stan.
I love Doom myself. Man, he would fit quite well into these stories. I can't wait to see how they're weaving him into all this, socio-political intrigue and all that, the geopolitics. But
maybe this is like completely creating a pocket for Doom.
There are a lot of ways you could bring Doom in. That's one of them. As a rival to Wakanda or something like that, you can introduce him that way. There's a lot of different
comic.
Yeah. And no, that's a really exciting point. Like who the power broker could be, like making him Norman Osborn. I would be really mistrustful because I would think it was another Ralph Boner moment. If Willem Dafoe showed up as a guy named Norman, I would think it was a Ralph Boner moment, and I would get real angry. Did
you not like the Boner moment?
They did nothing wrong. You got your hopes and dreams up, and they shattered them. That's why I like The Last Jedi so much. People got their hopes up, and they were shattered, and it felt good to me.
That's demented, and you should talk to someone about that.
I root for the New England Patriots, so my greatest joy in life is people's hopes and dreams being just cast to the wayside. So.
or deflated a little bit.
Hey, this is an MCU podcast. Don't save your deflated jokes for the Grant. You have a sports podcast, right?
No, I do not. I don't know what deflated gate is.
I'm so glad this has been recorded because I made a sports joke and it was pretty good. Not timely.
I liked it.
Not timely.
Yeah, 4 years late, but good.
It was great, Jason. So I think that we still have to talk a little bit more about John Walker, in so much as I think I have a theory for how this whole season is going to end. The final scene, I believe, is going to be Zemo walking in to the apartment where John Walker is with little booties on his feet and gloves on, and he pulls a Departed on him and just pop, caps John Walker and walks out. And then a rat walks
You think
by.
John...
It's funny you say that because I was literally watching The Departed this morning. Sorry,
we have a little bit of a hiccup there. No, the video.
Oh, okay. I thought I said. Like I said, I was literally watching The Departed this morning, and you all just kind of stopped and was like,
I'm like, what is going on with the video?
I like how you knew you were going to be on this podcast, so you waited till the last minute to watch the episode, but you watched The Departed this morning. I got to prepare for the podcast. I got to watch The Departed.
Exactly.
But
I like that. Yeah, I like that idea though. That Zemo just ends up finishing him, in a quiet moment at the end. I think that would be pretty cool.
I want to live.
Zemo escaped multiple times from these guys, only to come back. Right? He keeps coming back. Like he escapes from them, from the handcuffs, and goes and destroys the serum, and then is back with the gang. I mean, I guess that wasn't necessarily coming back, but it feels like he's had opportunities to kind of jump ship from them, and he's kind of along for the ride because he does believe in the cause.
Yeah, I want to see Zemo now like get together with like Batroc and Crossbones and John Walker when John Walker fully and wholly breaks and back again. It wouldn't be the Thunderbolts, but like give us like the Masters of Evil or something like that. That supervillain team. Not that any of those guys listed would be able to take on the Avengers.
Have you seen how far Batroc can jump? Watch out, everyone. Watch out.
I just want to see Thor go, why is that man bouncing so much?
I personally believe, and I'm willing to be pantsed on this, but I believe there's redemption for John Walker. We've got. I don't know if it's going to come at the end of this series, but I think there's redemption for John Walker. I think he has a difficult road to walk. I think not unlike the comic John Walker, he will recognize that he is not, the man he wants himself to be quite yet. He's not the enduring symbol that America needs. And maybe his approach needs to be a little different. But I believe that he is not going to go down this path of darkness that a lot of people seem to think he's going for. This is a multi-layered character. And if he survives the show, I think he's got a lot of good to contribute to the future MCU.
I don't know how you use an American shield, a symbol of America, to decapitate a dude like repeatedly on camera, and then get to still be any sort of representative of in that sort of uniform, or feel like you can still be a hero that can be like that can handle the shit.
Look, we all know that his true destiny is not to be Captain America. This man is a U.S. agent. That is his job. A U.S. agent operates a little differently, but his aim is still the same. By eventually, not immediately, but eventually.
What if? Here's the thing. So the original story in 1986, when John Walker took over the Shield, was because I believe it was because Steve Rogers quit or was forced to resign or something like that.
He quit
because America wasn't representing the values that it used to, or something to that effect.
It's not important. Yeah.
yeah. But when he quit, I mean, that changes things, so we really can't say what's going to happen, right? We can't use the comic as a guidebook for what's going to happen to this, because what the MCU has done is they're picking like all of these great threads and said, how do we weave them together? And honestly, in a lot of ways, make them better, right? But that just makes me think how Steve quit because he didn't feel like he could embody what America meant these days or whatever. I would really like John Walker to just be like, you know what? I'm going to accurately represent America. I want them to do that. I want to see that TV show of John Walker, Captain America. No, Stars and Stripes and yeah, whatever. But, it's like he's got like KFC stickers. And it's like
he's a full NASCAR.
Yeah, he's like full NASCAR. It's like the Shield is sponsored by DuPont, and then he's like, after he's caught on tape like decapitating somebody, he looks at the camera and he goes, "Watch Real Housewives of Avengers Mansion Tuesdays at 9." And then he belches because he's kind of fat, and whenever he talks to the Falcon, he often says, "Now, I'm not racist." What?
He's just so relatable.
Yeah. And I mean, let's make him America if we want to do that.
You have described the comics John Walker pretty accurately. He's kind of a racist guy. He said a bunch of horrible shit about like indigenous people. It's not great. It's not great.
And I want to see him like maybe like he took the serum, even though he's like hardcore anti-vaxxer, and like I want to see them explore that.
I find that they've introduced a lot of really interesting characters in this show with John Walker and Battlestar and Carly Morgenthau. Now, the problem is though, like the rest of the Flag Smasher group, they all are super soldiers. They all have super serum, whatever, super people. All of them are disposable. They're all in the background, like in fight scenes, and I don't know who's who, except for that they're all wearing just like all black, and it's just once again one of these things of like all of these villains, they just need multiple bad guys to fight for fight sequences, which really diminishes Zemo's argument of like how dangerous they are. Because I'm like, I don't know, like they don't even seem like a threat. It's just a nuisance in these fight scenes.
I mean, they're not trained. These are just people who got access to. It's like, give me a rocket launcher, I'd probably kill myself by accident. Like the fact they can still fight, even though they're not trained, like they're doing their best. Give the kids a chance, man. Come on now.
All right, fair. I just am leaning much more toward the Thunderbolts idea as a spinoff from here, where we have fleshed out a bunch of really interesting super soldiers or whatever they kind of want to do with them. And it once again, Bucky's or Zemo's argument about like, any super soldiers are bad also really should be challenged by anyone who goes, did you forget that because we had a few superpowered people here, we were able to defend this planet from aliens? We have sorcerers now. We have all the other crazy stuff that's going on. Super soldiers.
It's like, did no one tell Zemo about the big three?
Yeah, we got big three. All right. Well, guys, do you have any closing thoughts for theories of where this show goes, or any just kind of zany theories? Dimitri, I'll start with you.
Nothing too terribly deep. I don't know if you guys talked about Isaiah Bradley's grandson. That kid's going to be Patriot, and it's going to be great. I look forward to seeing him join the Young Avengers. I look forward to seeing him, try to live up to his grandfather's legacy, even in this country, as he tries to serve this country that let down his entire grandfather's generation. So very excited for some Patriot in my life. Don't know if it's going to happen here, but excited to see it.
Yeah, that's really exciting. I hope we get to see more exploration of the super soldier serum and its long and storied and troubled history. I mean, we could even, have a couple of nods to the Weapon X program and the connections to that, which that could be really exciting. Just some little Easter eggs or something like that. That could be really neat. I hadn't really given a thought to the identity of the power broker, but now that you have put it in my head that, oh no, this is possibly going to be a reveal. Now I want to know who the power broker is. But something that we haven't really been asking that I really want to see a resolution to is, at the end of this, who's going to be holding the shield?
Mm-hmm. They had in the trailers that Bucky and Sam are like out in the trees, out in the forest or something, and they're like taking turns chucking the shield around. Was that just for promo? Like, I don't even know.
I don't watch trailers. That's why I don't watch trailers, man. I want to see that. I want that to be a surprise. Why would you tell me these things?
Sixth episode, they get after everything is said and done, they get a cabin together and they start making their own in Vermont, and they start making their own maple syrup, and they just retire from the game, and they start like an extreme disc golf using vibranium shields, and they live happily ever after.
What's that song during the volleyball scene during Top Gun? They could play that. Hey, Hanging with the Boys?
Playing with the boys. I really want to see like some of those old X-Men posters of them just like hanging out by the pool. Ride motorcycles together, playing baseball.
Well, you guys have given the Marvel crew a lot of material to work with, I think, for upcoming shows. We'll see where they go from here.
If they want to hire either of us, we would love to write those shows for you. Absolutely. We're ready.
Absolutely.
They're like, is this really the script you wanted to hand in? You saw the volleyball part, right? Yeah.
And they're like, let me read you the first page of this script that came in. Gabby is nailed to the tree of woe.
It is my favorite part of seeing a new show, be it a Marvel show or any other show. I'm like, oh man, that's gonna be good, and then I have to take a second and be like, oh wait, I can like submit for that. Like I can try to get on that show. That's awesome. I won't gut it. I won't, but I can sure try.
Well, I think I'm going to go ahead and wrap things up there. Dimitri, thank you so much for joining us. Where can people find you?
The only social media that I actually use, in fact, consistently is Instagram. I should probably remember my Instagram handle, but if anyone out there in MCU Pod land wants to follow me and my silly antics, you can find me at the word heavy_DII. That is heavy _DII. I like to post a lot about politics. I like to post opportunities for, writers who are, out there who want to, make a break into the industry, Black writers, non-white writers of all sorts of, anyone who feels like, you want to do something different in the writing industry. I try to post a lot of opportunities about that. I like to post a lot of the food I eat. I'm not doing anything major out there, but, Instagram's fun, and if you want to follow along with the adventure, I'd love to have you.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for joining us. Jason, what about you?
Yeah, thanks. I am on The Modern Rogue, which comes out on YouTube all the time. 2-3 episodes a week. I don't know. It's a lot. And I have a book available on Amazon right now. It's called Killer Candy, the first book in the Occultech series. It is, if you like Ghostbusters or Fright Night or horror comedy, that's what you can expect. Yeah, I think that's it. Oh, jasonsmurphy.com. That's a good one. Go sign up for my newsletter. I got some big stuff coming up in the coming year, books, shows, all sorts of fun stuff. So
yeah, I've only read one of your books, Jason. I have purchased Killer Candy. I haven't read it yet, but I love Black Oak Motorcycle Club.
So thank you.
People, get on this man. This man knows how to write. This man knows how to write. I'm winging it constantly. This man knows how to write.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate that. That's really kind of you.
I assume you know how to write. I'm not going to read your shit.
That's fine.
Viewers, thank you so much for joining us on this week's pod. Remember, you can follow us at youtube.com/MCU Pod. You can subscribe to us there. You can follow us on Twitter, MCU Pod. You can go to MCUpod.com. MCU Pod, MCU Pod, MCU Pod. Next week is our penultimate episode of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, episode 5. We are very excited to dive in and see. Penultimates are always the best episodes. That's my opinion. Because you got to wrap things up in the last one. And that can be a little boring, but that penultimate one,
that's usually, that's a good point.
Yeah, that's half measures, baby, and Breaking Bad. Yeah,
that's all the good episodes of Game of Thrones. It was always episode 9 in a 10-episode season.
Yeah. Be sure to come check that out again. That's going to be Friday night at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. You can always support us over at patreon.com/MCU Pod if you want to kick us a few bucks, and you can get bonus exclusive content. We're doing more stuff throughout the week. In fact, there might be an early release of a Loose Cannon Comics podcast over on our Patreon. I believe.
Really?
Jason, were you aware of this?
No, I didn't know.
I believe a certain co-host of yours passed that along to me and said you should put that on there. And I was like,
oh, that's awesome.
Okay. So if you guys want an early preview of Loose Cannon Comics, patreon.com/MCU Pod.
Yeah, where I make a lot of the same points I made tonight.
You reference that you also watched The Departed. That's this morning. Somehow that comes up on both podcasts.
I watch The Departed every morning. Every morning. It's like, give me shelter, man. Give me shelter.
Thank you both again for joining us, and thank you to the audience. Our new sign out. Once again, I don't remember who came up with this, but MCU later.